Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of insights and distill them into actionable knowledge for you. Today, we're diving into something truly transformative, especially for anyone who has important conversations regularly. We're calling this Deep Dive. Inside the 60/40 listening framework that changes everything. Many of us, maybe you're in a service role or you connect with new people often for work, you find those first chats can be a bit, well, stiff, right? Like you're doing some kind of awkward dance, trying to impress or just tick boxes off a list. Today, we want to change that whole dance.
Exactly, those traditional discovery calls or introductory meetings.
Yeah.
They often feel really forced, don't they? Like reading from
Right.
a script, and they seem solely focused on closing a deal, which honestly just creates anxiety for everyone involved.
Yeah.
What we're looking at today is more of a blueprint, really, a way to turn those uncomfortable pitches into, well, authentic conversations. Discussions that actually build trust and help you find real ways to connect and assist someone.
Okay, so it's built around this idea of a 60/40 listening ratio and asking for permission as you go. Our goal today is to give you a framework, something structured but still natural for having these productive exploratory talks that actually feel good. You'll learn how to guide things, create real value, and figure out if there's genuinely a good fit between what you offer and what someone actually needs. All right, let's unpack this. Before you even say a word, there's this mindset shift needed. What's at the very first step for preparing for these authentic discovery chats?
Yeah, it really starts with centering yourself on a few core ideas. First off, your main job here is to understand and explore. It's not about pitching or persuading right away. Success isn't just closing the deal, it's actually about gaining clarity. For both of you, curiosity, genuine interest, those things will always get you better results than any script you memorize. And probably the most important thing, their story matters way more than your pre-planned talking points.
That makes so much sense, shifting from pitching to understanding. But how does focusing on clarity instead of the deal actually lead to more success? It feels a bit counterintuitive, maybe.
Oh, it totally redefines success. When you prioritize clarity, you actually filter out the situations where there isn't a good fit much faster, saves everyone time and energy. But more than that, genuine understanding builds trust. And trust is, well, it's the foundation for any really valuable long-term relationship or partnership. This often leads to more deals and, frankly, better deals down the line, often through referrals just because you listened so well and actually helped them figure things out.
Okay, I'm sold on the mindset shift. So, practically speaking, what should someone actually do before the call to get into that clarity first zone?
A simple pre-call ritual can make a huge difference. First, review any background info you have on them. You don't want to ask questions they've already answered. Then prepare maybe 3 to 5 core exploration questions, things you're genuinely curious about. Set clear time expectations up front. Usually 30, maybe 45 minutes is good. Have your notes ready, whatever system you use. And just before, take 3 deep breaths. Seriously, it helps center you in that service mindset. It's about being present for them.
Okay, deep breaths, notes ready, questions prepped, and then you're face to face or screen to screen. How do you kick things off to create that comfortable, collaborative vibe in the first few minutes?
Yeah, those first few minutes are key. Start with simple appreciation. Thanks so much for making time today. I'm really looking forward to learning more about your situation. Something like that. Then set clear expectations. So I was hoping we could spend the next, say, 30 minutes or so just understanding the challenges you're facing and exploring if there might be ways I can help. How does that sound? And this next part is crucial for permission. Before we dive in, would it be helpful if I quickly shared how I usually structure these kinds of conversations? That little question establishes a collaborative tone right away.
Okay, we've got the prep, the mindset, setting the stage. Now let's really get into the engine of this. The 60/40 listening framework itself. What does that ratio actually mean in a live conversation? Are we, like, timing ourselves?
Uh-huh. No, definitely not timing with a stopwatch. It's more of a guiding principle,
Yeah.
to help you manage the flow. It basically means about 60% of the time, you're focused on active listening, maybe taking some notes, and the other 40%. That's for asking thoughtful questions and reflecting back what you're hearing to make sure you got it right. Think of it like making sure their speaking bubble is significantly bigger than yours. You want them doing most of the talking.
60% listening. So what does active listening really look like in this context? Because it's definitely more than just staying quiet, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's very active. Key things include maintaining comfortable eye contact, not staring, but showing you're engaged. Taking brief notes helps you remember, but don't let it break the connection. Use those little nonverbal cues, nodding, maybe leaning in slightly, shows you're tracking with them. And critically, avoid interrupting or jumping in with solutions before they've really finished their thought. You're listening not just for the words, but for the underlying themes, the
Okay.
emotions, the unspoken stuff too. It's about being fully present.
That's a great point, listening for what's not being said, too. Okay, so for the 40% where we are talking asking questions, is there a smart way to do that? Or do we just wing it?
Definitely not winging it. There's a structure, a kind of natural progression that works really well. It moves from broad to specific, almost like zooming in. You start with opening questions. These are more story-based, designed to just get them talking and sharing their perspective.
Hmm.
Things like, what sort of prompted you to start looking into making changes right now? Or can you tell me a bit about when you first noticed this challenge? Even, what's actually working okay with your current approach?
Okay, so start broad, get the story flowing, then what?
Then you move into exploration questions. These are more challenge-focused. Now that you have some context, you dig a bit deeper into the problem itself. You might ask, how is this situation actually impacting your business or your team? Or what kinds of solutions have you maybe tried already? A really good one is, if we fast forward 6 months, what would success look like for you?
Makes sense. Story, then challenge, and the last type.
The last type is clarification questions. These are really detail-oriented. They help you hone in on specifics and make sure you haven't misunderstood anything. Like, could you give me a specific example of that? Or what makes that part particularly tricky for you? Or even, how are you measuring that impact currently? This progression, opening, exploring, clarifying, helps you build a really complete picture systematically.
I like that structure. It feels natural but purposeful. And you mentioned permission-based dialogue earlier. How does that keep weaving through the conversation? It sounds like it's not just an opening move.
Exactly, you got it. It's something you do throughout. You always want to seek agreement before you shift the focus of the conversation significantly. It makes them feel like a partner, like they're co-creating the discussion. So for instance, before you share some insights, you might ask, based on what you've shared, I have a couple of thoughts that might be relevant here. Would it be helpful if I shared those now? Or before going deeper on one point, that challenge you mentioned about X sounds really significant. Could we maybe explore that aspect a little further? Before suggesting anything. I've actually worked with clients in similar situations. Would you be interested in hearing about some approaches that have worked well for others? It keeps them involved and feeling like they have agency.
It sounds like you're doing a lot of intense listening and thinking on your feet, synthesizing information. How do you keep track of all the important details without losing focus or making the note-taking itself distracting?
That is a key challenge. And that's where having a structured way to take notes in real time is super helpful. Instead of just scribbling everything down chronologically, you organize it as you hear it. We find a simple framework works best. Maybe 3 main headings. First, current situation. This is where you jot down the business context, their main challenges as they state them, any recent changes or triggers for this conversation, and importantly, solutions they've already tried.
Okay, current situation. What's next?
Next is desired outcomes. What are they actually aiming for? What are their short-term goals? What's the bigger long-term vision? How will they know if they're successful? What are the metrics? And are there any timelines they're working towards? And the third heading is resource context. This covers the practical stuff, like what's the available budget, realistically? What internal resources or capabilities do they have? How do they typically make decisions like this? And are there any constraints on implementation we need to know about?
So it's like creating categories in your mind and on your paper or screen as you listen. That sounds much more manageable than just a running list. Can this ever become like a shared thing, mapping it out together?
Absolutely. When it feels appropriate, using simple collaborative mapping techniques can be really powerful. It creates shared understanding visually. You might sketch out a quick challenge map together on a whiteboard or shared screen outlining the main issue, what feeds into it, where it's having an impact, and what's blocking progress. Or maybe a solution visualization, brainstorming potential approaches, steps to get there, and what the expected results might be. It's like drawing their story together, making sure you're both literally on the same page.
Okay, but let's get real for a second. Conversations don't always follow the perfect script. What happens when someone jumps the gun and asks, so what's your solution for this? Way too early. How do you handle that without shutting them down?
Ah, yes, the eager beaver. It happens all the time. The key is to acknowledge their enthusiasm first. Something like, I really appreciate you're eager to jump into solutions. Then gently redirect back to the process. And we'll definitely get there. To make sure I recommend the absolute best approach for your specific situation, could we spend just a few more minutes understanding the full picture, and then quickly explain the benefit to them? This way, we can make sure we identify not just any solution, but the right solution tailored exactly to your needs. Maybe even add a quick story. I remember once I almost suggested something too early, and thankfully we kept digging because the real issue was something slightly different. Saved us a lot of trouble.
That's smooth. Okay, what about the other classic early question? So
Yeah.
what does this cost? How do you handle the budget question before you've even established value?
Right, another common one. And you need to handle it respectfully, of course. First, validate it. Budget is definitely an important factor, and we need to make sure any solution makes financial sense. Then, gently refocus on the value they're seeking. And to give you the most accurate information on that, let's first get crystal clear on the exact outcomes you're looking to achieve. And then you connect it to return on investment, the ROI. Once we understand the value you're hoping to create, we can look at the investment required in that context. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay, another scenario. What if the conversation gets a bit unbalanced? Either the other person is dominating and you can't get a word in, or maybe the opposite. They're giving really short surface level answers and you're struggling to get depth.
Yeah, both can happen. If someone's dominating, you need to find natural pauses, even brief ones, to gently redirect. You can summarize what you've heard them say to show you're listening, and then pivot with a specific follow-up question. Using time checks can also help. I see we have about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure we touch on X. If you're getting surface-level answers, you need to probe more gently. Ask for specific examples. Use prompts like, "Could you tell me a bit more about that?" You can also explore the impact. How does that challenge affect other areas, like your team or your customers? Sometimes sharing a relevant, anonymized example from your own experience can spark them to open up more too. And if they keep rushing to solutions, acknowledge their proactivity, but gently explain the value of digging deeper first, maybe with a quick case study example.
Okay, great strategies for navigating those common bumps. So let's say you've done that. You've guided the conversation, listened deeply, taken your structured notes. How do you know when it's actually the right time to naturally transition and sort of wrap up the discovery part of the call?
You start to feel it, but there are signals. Look for those natural transition points. Usually, it's when the core challenges feel clearly defined. You have a good handle on their desired outcomes, you understand the practical context, resources, decision-making cage. And often, the biggest signal is when they start asking about next steps. So, what happens now? Or what would be the next stage? That's a clear sign they feel understood and are ready to move forward.
That's a fantastic cue to listen for. Okay, so you sense it's time. What's the best way to summarize everything and define those next steps clearly so everyone leaves the conversation feeling confident and on the same page?
You need a clear closing sequence. First, reflect your understanding. Okay, let me take a moment to summarize what I think I've heard, just to make sure I've captured everything correctly, and then briefly recap the key points from your notes: the situation, goals, context. Second, confirm accuracy. Ask directly. Does that sound about right? Is there anything important I might have missed or maybe misinterpreted? Give them a chance to correct or add anything. Third, discuss value alignment. This is where you bridge to potential solutions. Based on everything you've shared, I do think there are a few ways I might be able to help, specifically around mentioned key areas. Would you be interested in exploring those options further? And finally, if they agree, define clear next steps. Be specific. Okay, great. So what I suggest is the next step is, e.g., I'll put together a brief proposal outlining X and Y. I'll schedule a follow-up with person Z. How does that sound from your end? This collaborative closing reinforces the partnership.
This framework sounds incredibly powerful, but it's not just theory, right? It's about actually doing it and seeing that shift. So for everyone listening right now, what are some immediate practical actions they can take, maybe even today, to start applying this 60/40 approach?
Absolutely. Action is key. Okay, immediate actions within the next 24 hours. First, draft your personalized question bank using those opening, exploration, and clarification categories. Second, set up your note-taking template, digital or paper, with those three headings: current situation, desired outcomes, resource context. Third, practice those transition phrases out loud. Seriously, say them until they feel natural coming out of your mouth. Things like, would it be helpful if? Or could we explore that further?
Yeah.
And fourth, maybe the boldest step, schedule your very first discovery call where you consciously commit to using this approach. Just try it.
Okay, those are great first steps. What about looking a bit further out, say over the next week or the first month? What habits should people build to really make this stick and see lasting results?
Good question. Within the first week, your goal should be to conduct at least 2, maybe 3 conversations using this framework. Get some reps in. And here's the crucial part. After each call, review. Listen back to a recording if you can, or at least review your notes carefully. Ask yourself, where did I talk too much? Where could I have asked a better question? What did I miss? That self-reflection is gold. Then over the first month, keep refining. Build up your library of effective questions. Start collecting little anecdotes or case studies you can use. Maybe even sketch out common solution approaches you can adapt. And definitely start tracking your results. Are your conversations feeling better? Are you getting clearer outcomes? Are conversion rates improving? Measure it. That keeps you motivated.
This deep dive into the 60/40 listening framework really does feel like it could transform those potentially awkward chats into genuinely valuable explorations. It really changes that stiff dance we talked about at the start.
It really does. At its core, it's all about building trust and creating clarity for both sides. And like any skill, success comes from consistent practice, reflection, and refining these techniques. View every single discovery conversation as a fresh opportunity to create real value simply through better understanding.
So the fundamental takeaway seems pretty simple, actually. Focus on serving the person you're talking to rather than just selling to them.
That's it exactly. Serve first. And the results, the sales, if you will, tend to follow much more naturally from that place of trust.
So a final thought for everyone listening. As you go into your next important conversation, just consider this. How might shifting even just 10% more of your focus away from talking at someone towards truly actively listening to them change the entire nature and outcome of that interaction? Something to think about.